All right, so let me go over, everybody knows about 2005 that the African Union said that they defined the diaspora as people, okay, of African descent and heritage living outside the continent. Everybody's familiar with that decision, right? Okay, so 2012, everybody's familiar with the historic meeting in South Africa where they called all the African diaspora together and said, you are the sixth region of us, the African Union, a governmental organization. Or do you want more? Do you want more background and explanation on that? Well, let me go ahead and give it. Let me go ahead and give it. The African Union as a governmental organization represents the people, the 1.1 billion people of the African continent up through July 16, 2012, when they created the sixth region, which added an additional 300 million people that they represent. That's the African diaspora. That's everybody who doesn't live on the continent, but they may be tribal. So they may be a Ibu, they may be a Dinka, they may be a Nubian, they may be whatever tribe, okay, but they no longer live on the continent, rather they live in the United States. So they count as part of the diaspora, but they don't count as part of the American diaspora from slavery, from those of us who were captured as slaves and brought here with nothing. Okay, rather than it's three generations. So those of us who were brought here in slavery starting in the 1500s, but British slavery starting in North America in 1616. And then there are those who came after the end of slavery and before the 20th century, and through the appearance of people like Colin Powell and Shirley Chisholm. And then the modern, okay, of those of African, and that was mostly Caribbean, okay. Then there is the modern from the continent of World War II, okay. And so within that context, that is the diaspora, okay, that they said everybody, all three waves, okay, here in America, all right, 55 million people, okay. So as far as, that whole reverse of 1% of blood, okay, are part of the diaspora. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton's parents, etc. Hold on a second. Excuse me, brother. Okay. Okay, I'm on a conference. It's actually being recorded. Okay. All right. So one of the things that we're doing is we're building on that. So we built on 2013, Africa released a business plan. Okay, for the governance of Africa through 2063. And in that business plan, they broke it down to the first part of the plan is 2014 through 2017. Second part of the plan is through 2030, which is with the Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030. So they broke that down. The difference is they brought everybody together in October 2013 in New York at the African Union's embassy, and Friends of the African Union was part of those groups that they called. We surprised them in that we had a plan also for a 50-year plan for implementation here in the United States to create trade back and forth. And our plan was based on quantitative easing. In 2014, the United Nations on September 15th, we responded to the United States in a Universal Periodic Review where the President of the United States said the number one problem of America was racism. Okay, and the number two problem of America was criminal justice. And then he went down the line for 10 reasons, and then he said number 10 is in our Universal Periodic Review, where everybody reviews, every country reviews each other under United Nations system, and we as non-governmental organizations can either get governments to sponsor our comments, or if we're part of the United Nations family of NGOs, like where we are. Okay. All right. Then what we are able to do is to make comments. Well, we were able to make comments. We did, and we said we have a solution that can be based on 3 areas, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and St. Louis, as a model, and we are now in the process of rolling that model out on a national basis, based on us operating as a Chamber of Commerce, and us operating, through that Chamber of Commerce on a plan that talks about economic development, talks about addressing those issues that the President said America has problems in, and racial discrimination, criminal justice, indigenous issues, national security, immigration, labor, trafficking, economic, and the environment, and the implementation of human rights and international treaties. So what we're doing is using that international treaties under the African Union that he signed on in 2013, and he signed on in an accelerated process of moving Africa forward, and we're saying that we can set that bar that he set here in Cincinnati in 2012 of what America was going to do in Africa in 2014, which he did do without our participation in a great bit. And now, okay, in 2015, now we put forth our participation from the headquarters in New York. That includes Africa House, and that we do from Cincinnati includes the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, and then we do from various different chapters and cities that would take a specialization, like what we would do in Denver would be the whole mining infrastructure, the whole working to put together in New York, the green demonstration building in Harlem, where this September the leaders of Africa are going to be coming up in Harlem, okay, as part of the United Nations new General Assembly that will approve a 15-year plan for the world called the Sustainable Development Goals, in which Friends of the African Union joined with New Future Foundation, and we were actually selected to be one of the delegates in the civil society, which has been working to put that together, and went to Addis Ababa. And in this past week, our people in New York have been in the sessions at the United Nations as an NGO that has rights under their system to make comments for changes. Now, only the governments can implement this. But for the first time, we as African Americans, we showed up at the table. And so that's what Friends of African Union has done so far. Now we're implementing the Chamber of Commerce, and the whole idea is economic development begets social enlightenment, where we as African Americans last year earned $1 trillion, but we only spent 6% of that on our own businesses, okay, which is a little bit less than the Africans, okay, who earned $2.5 trillion, and they spent 7% of their money in African businesses. Okay, so the whole idea of growing more of our businesses within each other is something President Obama signed on for, and that's what this call is about for Denver and Louisiana and Atlanta, is to start branches of this initiative in those areas. As I said, Denver, I'm looking at to deal with the issue of mining and the green that we talked about. Whereas in Atlanta, it's a broad base of businesses that are with a heavy African communities in Atlanta, and in Louisiana is to take the whole issue of reconstruction to another level. So that's the basis of this discussion. Does that everybody agree? Is that the basis of this discussion? All right, so go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, we want to call in as soon as we can. That gentleman that we were on the line with, And in the call, you got disconnected. And I think the last question that he asked you, this was last week before the call, was what is it that that you needed assistance with? And we began explaining to him about the buildings in New York, the structure, and that it was $3 million project. Then the phone got disconnected. So I believe that there was somewhat of a disconnect there as far as him understanding the scope of what you're bringing to the table.
Right. Well, I'll be able to send you a copy of this call, okay, so that you can distribute it to whoever you need to. Okay. So let me give you the short of the project for the $3 million. So that you'll have it on the record. If it comes in, that's great. But otherwise, you'll have this conversation, the video, audio of this conversation. Is that good for you?
Yes, sir. That's perfect. That's perfect.
All right. So it's a $3 million deal. Okay. And what we're doing is we're saving Africa House, which is where the leaders from Africa met over 50 years ago up in Harlem. It's a building that is being under attack by some unscrupulous lenders who put a mortgage on one apartment condo in the building and then did a second out of the 8 condos in the building, then claimed the mortgage on the whole building. Okay, when they claim the mortgage on the whole building, we know it's going to be ruled by the courts as a false mortgage. But until that happens, okay, the people who put the mortgage in the building say that they have a mortgage for the whole building. And they're pursuing this property that includes office space and 8 units. So if that mortgage was to stand as a cost of it, then you say that each unit is worth $325,000. You have 12 units in the building, okay? And so you're talking about a value of the property of over $3.6 million. We basically looked at the comparable sales and others in the property, and we think an appraisal will bring the property value in at over $7 to $8 million easy, because it's New York, Harlem real estate. Okay, and comparable sales around it support that. But of course, appraisal gives it to the value. So the monies would be put up against a loan to value. Okay, that would give 100% coverage to the value of the investment. Now, the investment basically is to recover the building and to make the building an example of green and advanced smart home technologies. To put in our own, basically, the first floor then will become the business center. For us, will become a smart business center, will become a virtual business center, will become a incubation center, and will be the headquarters of us launching a program of environmental remediation that will be based in the urban core on the work done on that building, but would spread in terms of focus in not only New York, but as a demonstration that we would have with the leaders of the African Union. And that we would do so in a short order drill for September 2015 as our debut. And also push that at the Congressional Black Caucus starting on the 16th. And I've already talked to other members of the African Scientific Institute Fellowship who would use this as an example and sign on with us as an example. And then we would also run it as a program where students and young people on communities like Denver, Atlanta, et cetera, could intern through this location with the United Nations through the New Future Foundation joint venture with FAU. Furthermore, it would the capitalization would provide the funds for us domestically to go and sell our services in August, September because it's becoming the end of the fiscal year. So at the end of the fiscal year, the government spends $500 billion a year in services that are purchased by the Obama administration or the Bush administration. So they spend that type of money, notwithstanding any deficit spending. And so at the end of the year, it's use it or lose it. Okay, and in this particular case, our joint venture would be an architecture, engineering, construction company that would have the capacity and technology and sales now infrastructure to sell our services domestically at that opportunity, and more importantly for us to sell directly into the 1.1 billion people of the African continent, as well as Bermuda and other targets of opportunity that have an African diaspora. That's what I see the Denver play is.
Right, right. What is the relationship with the sister cities?
All right, so the sister cities, okay, here in Cincinnati, our sister city is Harare, Zimbabwe, President Mugabe's country. So what we did is that on April 13th, we agreed with residents of the United States who may be Zimbabwean Americans that we would create a country specific bureau. See, the way FAU is organized is FAU is a bureau organization. So there's an FAU USA, but these are DBAs currently. We're in the process of changing that. So there's an FAU to be Zimbabwe, and on April 13th, we agreed on the terms and conditions for that because of the sanctions that are in place. So we put in place a document with civil society that basically says we're going to run this organization under the American rules that include sanctions, which means we can do business with the government and with President Mugabe as president of Zimbabwe, but we can't do business with him as an individual. And so that's what we're doing.
Right on.
And so we're doing it, and we're using the sister city process so that Cincinnati and Harare are tied together. And remember, I told you in 2012, that the United States, set out a policy and for U.S. and Africa, and they used Cincinnati as the demonstration site for that.
Okay.
And so now go ahead.
The reason why I asked is because I'm familiar with Mr. Joseph Adiambo, and he is the chairman for the Denver Nairobi committee. And I was just wondering if there was some type of relationship between that.
Yeah, there is in Kenya, and especially since he's Nairobi, they want us to do a development in Nairobi County in 92 acres. So that would be our project for our joint venture start in Africa.
I think if Mr. Joseph was on the line, what he would say at this point is to get it understood as far as our position in the situation. But as we said before, we do have access to large cap dollars. But in order to access those large cap dollars, which would support any other verticals or situations or operations that may be on the table, we have to initiate in a high energy project, a clean energy project, meaning, one of the situations that we have that we can come in and bring solar and make it more efficient, and that would open up for all of the possibilities.
Well, like I said, in New York, and I talked to Queen Mother, she's willing to make it solar. And then in Nairobi, it was planned that it would be among the power sources that would be used would be solar. Now solar in terms of Bermuda and other sites, those are planned unit developments that would include solar, but not necessarily saying that solar will be the only power source in there. but it will be as green as project as possible. We believe in sewer remediation, water, and et cetera. Again, that whole thing that we're doing in Cincinnati.
Right, right, right. And I'm not sure how much of details you read of Dr. Norway, but the rail system that they have in Colorado and Denver, he designed that system, the transit system.
And I want to keep that as a separate conversation because, you know, the dearth in America of rail, okay, is, very problematic with the government only putting $1.2 billion into rail each year and cumulatively less than $4 billion, including local and state investment into rail versus, China that's got 12,000 miles and it's got 5 different major projects in the African continent right now. Okay, so I want to keep that as a separate conversation. Here in Cincinnati, we have a chance to play with a rail line, okay, called the streetcar on the second phase. But again, I got to talk to you about it. There's already down, as I said in the previous conversation, you should look at plancincinnati.org for where we're building on, okay? And so if we have a play on the streetcar phase 2 from your people, then that might be something to explore. But I'm not, that's a project down the line. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sending him a message right now. I'm trying to see if he can get to it as soon as possible.
All right. So the, small rail projects, Bermuda Rail, okay, that's a down the line rail project too, and that matters for us to do the building. The plan unit developments in Nairobi, that's a rail for the plan unit development, we're not talking national rail systems. Rather, think of it like Disney World, okay, where they have a monorail system for the big development. If you got a 92-acre development, rail that runs around the whole and crisscrosses it, that's the way to go, and that's the way it's planned in there. Okay, and so the Nairobi project is the plan. Go ahead.
Would those be permanent structures or would it be
permanent? Yeah. This is plan unit development. What we propose is secure plan unit developments. Okay, and so that's what we proposed in Embu County in Nairobi, that they in Kenya, sorry. And Nairobi said that they would rather have that in the county and have 92. They have given over to us for the purchase for that and to run a monorail into the town, but basically that site would be a secure plan unit development.
Okay. So, from my understanding, and forgive me if my question may be a little, you've addressed this before, but I'm trying to make sure I ask all the right questions that I feel my partner will ask, so he'll know how involved and engaged we would be with the situation. But this is not where you're putting a package together to be presented. This has already been presented, and you're facilitating.
In the New York, okay, we're negotiating the go-to. So if you come to the table on that, then basically the money is secured against the mortgage. Okay, it's secured against the facility. Talking about in Embu and Nairobi, we proposed. Okay, we have not finalized a negotiation. We have the governor of Embu County who has said, yes, I accept your framework for the discussion of how does this get paid for, how does this get implemented. Okay, that's where we're at.
Right, so as far as we are concerned, I'm going to say IPS, as far as IPS is concerned, all you need from them at this point would be some type of memorandum of understanding stating that they could possibly be, or they most likely will be, the clean energy provider on their project.
Yes, the terms would basically be that we would go to in the market here, okay, based on a real estate play in New York City. That would give us the cover, and the memorandum would say, and further work that we do that comes out of that memorandum would be based on energy and would be based on clean energy and solar energy, and that we would name specific projects in Kenya and Ghana that we are working with the respective governments on. And then we would also say that in that relationship as an American concern, that we would push it for the federal government and other governments based on their spending patterns domestically, that we would qualify.
Okay, okay. Is it possible? I know you did email me some information before, but is it possible that, and I do know that, if I'm not mistaken, you were preparing some other documents?
Yeah, the lawyers will have a document on Monday. All right, I've been busy getting everything together and responding to that. So with your documents on Monday.
Okay, great, great. And no disrespect to the situation, but the paperwork is what.
Oh, I understand, brother.
So once I present the paperwork, that will explain everything, and they'll respond at the time.
There we go. And so I'll get you the paperwork timely on Monday, and you take a look at it. And that's why I said it's based on a domestic real estate deal, because it can be quantified by a appraisal and attorneys that, under a system that your group has experience with.
Right on. Good deal. Good deal. Well, I mean, I think you pretty much answered every question I have.
All right. Well, then we've covered it, and then I'll get back to you on Monday. I appreciate your time. Time is like anything else.
I appreciate your time.
All right. We are.
Hold on one second. Mr. Nick, do you have any questions? No, I don't. You've given a great overview here. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
All right. Then with that, we're good, and I will talk to you on Monday. 4 o'clock on Monday. 4 o'clock on Monday.
Okay, 4 o'clock on Monday.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Tim, I'll talk to you soon, Tim. Okay.